Greetings, citizens. I am your host, Jay Voodoo Child, and this is Manor Lords. After a huge patch in October of 2025, this version 08035 has significantly changed the game so much that most of the old guides are out the window. They're pretty much useless. And people are kind of diving into the game, trying to figure out the mechanics, trying to figure out the math of some properties and what have you, and generating new guides. This series here is my attempt to that, and I'm calling it the Not So Perfect because this is a journey for me of discovery, and so I'm figuring things out on the fly and I'm making adjustments. This particular video is to recap my exploration of what it takes to get the double pop growth that we are now have available to us when we have approval above 60%. So as long as you have available housing, you will get 2 pops a month. This used to happen at 75 in the old game and came at a specific time during the end of the month. This video right here is a recap of my previous, I don't know, 4 videos, I guess. And where I was going month by month through March, April, and June. And then also I had a recap when I kind of discovered I made some missteps in the March video. But also, this is kind of a general recap of that journey and some of the things that I've finding out that were missteps in this attempt. And so I wish to discuss those and kind of integrate that into what I'm sharing to the greater community. And hopefully some people can take away from that some different techniques or what have you from the way that they've approached the game so far. And, hopefully through the comment section, we can get dialogues with various people and all learn from one another. And so that's something I'm looking forward to with this series. And, certainly I do not know everything about this game. I have played this game a lot, but I definitely have a different play style than most people. And so, what I find entertaining, it definitely will not for other people. So it's just a journey. And I'm just taking this time to share my journey on this and, again, hopefully enhance the community's enjoyment of this game. So, the recap on the last 3 months. Again, this particular group of videos was focused on how to secure that double pop per month. And I think through these videos, we've discovered what that is. Get your approval above 60% and have housing. Looking at this, the major contribution is market food variety. And right now, we still have just a little bit of wheat bread left from our original stock. We're getting some small game and 112 berries. So for summer, we can kind of go in different directions. One of the things that I was able to do is I'm able to build a church right now. I have enough materials, so I decided to do that. So I can set that up. And as that flower goes away, and as I lose approval in the market food variety, I'm hopefully gaining it in the amenities and trading it off. And so therefore, and able to continue with this growth and make that 3 into a 6. And so the 8% maybe going down to 4, maybe 5. Let's see, what do we have in the market right now? So we have 3 different things in the market. So the 8 doesn't really translate well, but that's okay. But we're losing flour, and you know what? The 8 is probably 1 meat, 1 vegetable. So 4% here, 4% here, 4% here, 3% here, and church access probably add 3%. So yeah, that's like the percentages. So that's what it takes to get maintain above 60, and it's just after that point building the houses. One thing that I don't think I have gone over in this series is I have found out previously that if you are upgrading this house, let's say we're making it into a double, it kind of goes off the market while it's under construction. So it's not available for that first family to move in while you're making space for the second family. So just kind of have a spot open, a genuine spot open always to receive that extra pop growth. But one of the things that made this attempt a not so perfect is I did not factor in the potential for farming. Now we've got 2 rich nodes here, and that means our fertilization is not so great. But with the food variety, we do have a pretty good patch of flour right here. And the rye is even better. So while this is not a fertile land, we can get 2 different bread types going and add that into our production models. And right now, I mean, game is... I'm not even sure whether game is an issue anymore, because this is the first campaign I've had with animals. And I've got a person here full-time, a family here full-time, and this keeps on hitting 15 all the time. So I'm thinking this could probably go down to 10 even. And not truly wipe this out. So it takes 2 to make a new small animal. And so maybe we can take at that 15 and definitely go down to 10, and then have those 5 couples produce 5 in quick succession. So that's probably the ideal number for wild animals, is 2/3 of whatever you have. Down here with the berries, I've had both berries and mushrooms in different campaigns, and they kind of work the same. I'm trying to figure out what makes them different in the scheme of things. And it could be just some of the origins worked for one but not the other. Haven't really discovered the main difference. But with a rich deposit, this is growing 15 on the ticks. And I have not really studied the ticks on how many is going to happen in the month. But I do know that for both berries and mushrooms, ticks are happening through spring They start in spring, continue into summer, and then they're still showing growing throughout summer. And during the fall, it's declining, and then as soon as winter hits, it goes to zero if it hasn't reached zero already. So basically, you've got 6 months to really harvest this and get down to zero. And how much that requires, I don't know yet. The forge huts have 4 people and just one person dedicated, because my population is limited right now, is maintaining a collection of this. And again, it's like really close to the berries, so not a whole lot of walking around, as you can see right there. But not identifying the farmland, not identifying the fact that we can bring in 2 food types into this mix. And when we get into level 2s, and I have not even seen level 3s, but this becomes 3 different groups with animal products, and one of these, or if not, probably 2 of these, getting split off into their own group. So that's something to kind of build around for the quote unquote perfect start. You got to start setting up your pop growth, your food production, your food variety, and your logistics centers, and trying to keep your people from walking around too much. Just kind of factoring in all the stuff to make the perfect start for your particular map and random start, and trying to understand the game well enough to make the best decisions given any situation you encounter. And so basically, the way I set up this particular game, I have 3 options. I can set up the church to kind of balance out losing. Actually, I'm not going to lose the 8, because I'm going to have the 4 and 4, because I'll have plenty of game and plenty of berries. So that's your meat and your vegetables. So I don't have to do the church. I don't have to immediately go into the vegetables. Now, the orchards take 2, 3, and 4 years to develop. So obviously, the sooner you get that going, the sooner the payoff will be. Whether that's worthwhile doing in their very first year could be something to consider. Is it something you want to set up during the winter? That way, the year expirations expire right before the spring, I believe, harvest season for the trees, or starts in spring. So, there's that aspect. But with this farming, how soon do you want to farm? How much resources can you put into even farming a little bit to get something even on the first harvest in 3 months? Is that a worthwhile venture to kind of get that diversity? And I guess that is all dependent on whether you have a nearby source of berries or mushrooms. So if you don't have something close by and you just have your fish or animals, then yeah, you want to get that flower going, because it takes several weeks. I think 12, 14, and 18 weeks to get the different vegetable varieties. And like I said, the fruits are not going to pay off for years. So getting a handful of grains on the first harvest, is that necessary? Or do you just want to beeline to the vegetables and make this as best as possible? So again, using the map to determine your decisions on what makes the perfect start given that situation. Meats and fishes, once you have a nearby source of that, you're good. If you don't have a nearby source of this, then you have to rely on animal produce. And I think at this point, the only thing that's available to you is eggs, and that will produce the occasional meat. So that's an adjustment we'll have to make. But with this particular sub series, I think I've got a good handle on what it takes to get to that pop growth. And then now it's trying to figure out what are the new game mechanics in other areas. One of the things I'm going to look at is farmland, because in the old system, I never did the ox plowing the fields and some of the other things, and like having the goats, or excuse me, the sheep improve the fertilization of fields. I didn't mess around with that stuff because I felt I had better value out of different development points, expenditures. So now that all that's open and available to us, I want to figure out what are the best practices for that. Typically, I would just make a sheep pen around all this pasture, and then trace it with a road afterwards. And it didn't matter the shape of it. I had the best fertilization always for what I was trying to do. And if again, I would be just going along this because there's not much on the other side of the King's Road, which you cannot bypass. So it's just things like that. And obviously, I wouldn't want my trade post here. I wouldn't want this building here. These 3 buildings could be someplace else. All these buildings, and granted, the center of my starting camp was right here, so I couldn't do that initially. But I have 3 different things that I can do: ember, rye, and leave the fallow for the sheep herding to increase fertilization there. I also don't understand how honey is factoring into things. Are you into? No, you're. Let's see here. Nope, you're the only one with a backyard extension. All right, so honey. There are influences by these bonuses here. So, I'll get a little trade goods, honey, and that aspiration there goes into our environment situation. Um, okay. So, extra yields of honey, great. But fertilization, you know, I believe the cap is 10% that you can gain from pollination. So, five beehives, and how to fit those in with the orchards, your farms, and your vegetables, I think all benefit from this pollination effect. And so, how much do you want to lean onto that if your pastures are only 31% and you're using a lot of that for your urbanization, or I guess, your rural standards. And it's going to take a while to chop down the trees that you need. So just all sorts of different factors that, we can integrate into the quote unquote perfect start. And just what are all those variables, and just knowing the game well enough for each discipline to figure out, okay, here's my situation. How do I want to adjust my approach to this to have the ideal start? And there is no cookie cutter always do this. It's going to be based on what resources you have, where they're located at, and even things like your water source. That's going to play major effects on how you design things. And this is probably one of the most limiting things. One of the surprising aspects of this game is just how unimportant fresh water is to a growing community. To me, this would be the number one thing influencing approval, is getting fresh water. I mean, we've got months of food brought into us, for our kind of startup capital. But until we get fresh water, you're not going to survive months. So that's kind of an oversight. Yeah, maybe that'll change one day. Right now, it's just get people in the houses. That's the most important thing. After that, everyone's happy and ready to go on. And it's only 3% boost to your approval to have a fresh water source. That doesn't make any sense to me. But anyway, so that's a recap of just my exploration of what it takes. I guess I have not gone into trade. One of the other things that I could do in summer is start trading. Now, I've got 30 set aside that will unlock the charcoal, since it's a major trade route. It costs 30. But in this given situation, I am thinking that it is best. Well, also, horses cost 60. And instead of trading 10 goods at a time, you're trading 50 goods at a time. So this significantly adds to your income. So I'm thinking this 30 is half of a horse at this point. And I'm considering putting maybe even all three of these kind of floaters that I have going in between the woodcutters, the charcoal, and the logging camp. And putting all three of them in there to get shipments of 10 each of my most abundant resource, and that is berries. Now, berries, of course, have a decay to them. I forget the term of it. So, they're I can't eat all that, so I might as well trade and get some money from it. And then if I do 3 shipments with 3 people, I can get 2 horses, and then another shipment to get that 30 back to get back into the charcoal. And hopefully that will take care of my berries and still have plenty of food to last through the winter. And when spring starts up and I get, a fresh batch of berries to work from. So it's just kind of using the resources that I am properly to propel our growth and expansion as much as possible. Where are the opportunities? I'm starting to get hides or pelts. I have, like, again, this is my first campaign with the animals, and so I have not seen what the ratios are for hunters and leather workers, and considered what are the new. So these are 2 each, those are 3 each, but those are coming from butchers, I believe, on cheap. Shoes, I don't know the price, and those are major. And I guess, no, not construction. So it's leather. Okay, leather are major trades of 50. So, is it best just to sell the pelts off, since you don't have to spend so much, and just get some 2s? Like, is get this up to 50 and do a horse trade off of that and get 100 back and use that 100 for something. So, just different techniques. So, to kind of recap the recap, I have 3 choices of directions that I can go into summer. I could start setting up the trade, I could lay down the church, or I could start setting up that additional food sources. And I think because I've got coverage on my requirements and approval rating from these 2 nodes, that I don't need to set up the vegetables or the fruits immediately. And I can lose this, 2 wheat bread and still be very okay, because I got 142 berries behind it to secure that approval percentage and maintain this at 65. The church is not that important and has a lot of resources. And, do I want to use those resources at all? Did I need to go to the saw pit this early to get 20 planks together? Probably not. Could I've used that time to make all that happen more useful, like to put crops down? Probably. So, just different variations on all that. So I think summer is a good time to really kick off your trading, to get those horses going, have dedicated housing for that, 1 or 2, and start setting up an animal importer, livestock trader. And the population, this has 3 people that it can be put into. So, 1 horse, 1 trader, and then, 3 hopefully, you can alternate there as far as income and expenditure. But, getting livestock up and running quickly, I mean, that's producing wool. And right now, the clothing is out of whack as far as consumption. It's supposed to be, I believe, once a year, but it's now once a month. So you need 12 times the amount of clothes as a happiness situation on level 3 buildings. So as soon as you can kind of get the stock going for that, the better off you're going to be, and the cheaper it's going to be. And how much will the sheep improve the fertilization if I'm starting to farm for that second harvest? So this kind of setting the dominoes up so they all fall and have their maximum benefits when you need them. This other things. So I think summer for the very first year is the season of trading and trying to get what you need for the next phase. And the second year, and that's all based on the map. So I hope this was enjoyable for you. I hope you got something out of it. I know kind of one of the helpful things about being a content creator is I'm talking these things through. These are all just kind of mental thoughts that I have on my own, but articulating them kind of helps me process the information, hopefully in usable ways. But it helps me understand this process. So this is beneficial, just explaining it, what I've discovered and what I've figured out on my own, or read from other people and heard from other people. So thank you all for watching. If you like this video, please consider giving it a thumbs up, subscribe, and click the bell icon to be notified when I go into my next deep dive on some aspect. I haven't decided whether it's going to be farming or whether it's going to kind of explore the new configurations that are ideal for vegetables, how large of a plot you need for various levels of burgesses that you expect to get to. Just all that kind of questions. And once we kind of figure out, I will probably do farming next, but I may do that next weekend and just kind of go back to my long-term campaign and run that out and kind of just make general discoveries along there. But please share with me your comments, your thoughts on this topic, and any discoveries that you've made. Am I missing something glaringly? Like I never even considered farmland, and now that we're no longer locked behind these development points and limited at that, we have so many different options and play styles, and so trying to integrate all of those disciplines into, quote, the perfect start is an interesting challenge, and one I look forward to taking on. But until next time, thanks everyone.